I'm glad they kept the asterisk in the name, if only because of how many people it managed to annoy. Hey everybody, welcome to Mainly Movies. Today I'm going to be talking about the 36th movie in the MCU, Marvel's 2025 superhero action film, Thunderbolts. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a variety of movie-related content like reviews, rank lists, and trailer reactions. All my reviews include a breakdown of the pros and cons, my rating, and even some tailored film recommendations, so be sure to watch through to the end of this video for all of that extra content. Thunderbolts stars Florence Pugh, Pullman, and Sebastian and was directed by Schreier. It tells the story of a group of misfit anti-heroes who form a reluctant alliance after finding themselves in the middle of a trap and cover-up. What can be said about the MCU at this point that hasn't already been said by me in dozens of other reviews, or anybody else? We are now 36 films into this gargantuan franchise, with this latest movie closing out Phase 5, just in time for Phase 6 to kick off in July. There once was a time when the MCU was a franchise that could seemingly do no wrong. Nowadays, I think it would be fair to classify it as a largely middling franchise. It's had some successes over the last couple years, but superhero fatigue and the overarching changes in story direction have definitely taken their toll, decreasing both ticket sales and enthusiasm. As has often been the case for me with later phase MCU movies, I had no knowledge of the Thunderbolts prior to this film. No expectations, no information other than what I already knew about returning characters based on their previous movies. And like many others, my interest in the MCU has certainly waned a bit in recent years. Hell, I still haven't even seen a good chunk of the Disney Plus shows. But the movies? I continue to stay on top of those, even if they rarely generate much anticipatory excitement. I'll admit that they've been a bit hit or miss for me lately, but Thunderbolts was a pleasant surprise, managing to feel like something akin to classic MCU, as well as something somehow different at the same time. Thunderbolts is a story of strays, a group of reject anti-hero misfits who find themselves in a situation where reluctantly teaming up is the only means of survival. These characters are loners, strays that used to only fit in as side characters or villains from other MCU movies and shows. Now joining forces is something new. Sort of. Superhero team-ups are certainly nothing new. Even anti-hero team-ups are something we've seen many times at this point. There's an unmistakable familiarity to some of this film's elements, but at the same time, there's a certain hard-to-pinpoint freshness to it all. Thunderbolts delivers all of the jokes and action you'd expect from an MCU entry, but avoids the endless CGI creature battles or grand multiverse-ending threats. Instead, there's a lot more practicality to the proceedings, with some solid hand-to-hand fights. The visually intriguing shadowy overhead hallway sequence, the exciting five-way vault fight. But in addition to many of the more classic tried-and-true MCU-isms, there's a darker edge to it all that feels like a step in a slightly more mature direction for the franchise. Superhero fights, jokes, and world-saving antics are entertaining, but it's always seemed like the best MCU movies, or superhero movies in general for that matter, are the ones that ground themselves in their characters. Many of the early phase MCU films not only understood, but succeeded in doing this. They weren't just entertaining origin stories, but also superhero character studies, often featuring flawed characters. Thunderbolts comes close to this style of superhero storytelling again. Like I said, this team is made up of strays from other corners of the MCU. Black Widow, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It's possible you might not readily recognize or even know who some of these characters are here. They're all damaged in some way, have all done terrible things that they regret, and are grappling with guilt and their own personal struggles. Despite the film being named for the team, Yelena is ostensibly the main character of Thunderbolts, getting the bulk of the focus and screen time. Florence Pugh does a really solid job here, reprising this Black Widow-introduced character. She's very funny, in a mostly deadpan kind of way, while also carrying much of the emotional weight of the film. Some of the other team members are a bit sidelined as a result. I'm looking at you, Ghost. But there's a fun combative quality to the overall team dynamic, with the ever-looming question of whether they'll betray each other. The addition of the MCU newcomer, Bob, adds an extra layer of humor and pathos to the story, with Pullman giving a great performance. Speaking of pathos, this is one of the most emotionally engaging MCU films we've had in a long time. Sure, some of these films have gripped us with surprising character deaths or world-altering threats, but this is a darker and more introspective film than any of those. There are a number of interconnected themes about teamwork, found family, and redemption here, but broadly speaking, this is primarily a film about mental health. It candidly acknowledges and explores guilt, depression, feelings of uselessness, and even substance abuse of multiple characters. Each of these team members are forced to confront and grapple with their own personal traumas, with it all coming to a combined head during the third act. Discussion and dialogue related to mental health themes are the focus, but this film also offers plenty of visual metaphors regarding inner demons, being trapped within your own guilt, and fighting off the darkness that threatens to change who you really are. It's interesting to see the MCU delve into this darker, more serious territory a bit, and feature superheroes struggling so significantly with their mental health. Again, there's still plenty here in Thunderbolts that feels like the MCU of old, but the darker tonal shifts and unexpected emotional resonance within a mostly freestanding story that's not bogged down by or dependent on the complexity of the multiverse helps to positively set this film apart. Alright, let's talk about the pros and cons. Pro number one has got to be the characters. Apart from maybe Bucky, it's unlikely that any of the Thunderbolts team members were many people's favorite MCU characters coming into this film. They were mostly side characters, or villains, from some of the more underseen mid and late phase movies and shows. They're sort of the outliers, the rejects, but come together to form something very entertaining. Besides the underused Ghost, all of the team members get their moment to shine here, but there's no doubt that Florence Pugh's Yelena, and to a slightly lesser extent Louis Pullman's Bob, are the main characters who get the bulk of the story focus. But even without ever diving too deeply into some of those other characters, the entertainingly reluctant team dynamic is there. Pro number two is the themes. Most superhero films have some overarching theme that guides them. The majority of the time, that's somehow tied to self-discovery, and can work in tandem as a redemption story or a story about teamwork and found family. Now, it's true that Thunderbolts thematically taps into all of those things, but it features an umbrella theme of sorts that's not often seen in these types of movies, especially within the MCU. You'd think it'd come up more frequently given the things superheroes and anti-heroes do on a daily basis, but you rarely see mental health as a focal point of a movie like this. But this film features a team of people who've done a lot of things that they regret, and have all gone through some pretty traumatic experiences. So there's a lot of fairly candid dialogue and discussion about depression, guilt, and even substance abuse, in addition to a lot of visual metaphors regarding inner darkness and feeling like you're trapped and fighting with yourself. The third pro is the action. Things get a little messy during the third act, but leading up to that, there's some very entertaining and decently choreographed fight sequences. Seemingly all too often, these superhero films have felt very CGI heavy with their action lately. You know, some big computer-generated character fighting some other big computer-generated character. That can be entertaining, of course, but it lacks that viscerally grounded quality that can come from something more practical. There's certainly still CG used here at times, but there are also some well-done practical fight scenes, like Yelena's shadowy hallway infiltration, the vault fight, and Yelena and Bob's tide fight. On the con side, my only issues are just minor nitpicks. This is the type of movie that's not perfect and certainly has its problems, but nothing big or overarching enough to get its own con. The thing that probably stood out the most to me was the slightly rushed nature of the third act. There's a lot of setup to this movie and establishment of the characters and team dynamics, so when they finally got around to the final threat, it just felt so quick in comparison. It sorta had some after-school special cheesiness to it, whose predictability might be underwhelming to some people. Similarly, I think some audiences might be disappointed by the team members that are kinda sidelined, especially if you're not the biggest fan of Yelena, cause she's the primary focus. I really liked Yelena, and even I still wished that Ghost was given a bit more to do and a bit more character exploration. Before I give you my rating and recommendations, I want to remind you that if you're interested in buying Thunderbolt or any of the other films I mentioned today, I do have affiliate links for all of them in the description below. I get a small commission from anything you buy using one of my links, so I'd really appreciate it if you use them if you're in the market for any of these movies. I'm gonna give Thunderbolts 4 out of 5 paws. This is among the better MCU films in recent memory, providing comparatively grounded and emotionally engaging character-driven superhero entertainment. There's more than a hint of darkness to its mental health themes, but it's still action-packed and humorous in a way that both does and does not feel like a classic MCU movie. I would recommend Thunderbolts to people who like their MCU films to have a bit more grit to them. It's not grounded in a reality sense, but it's as close as you're probably going to get with an MCU team-up film, with a good deal of practical action, an unexpected examination of mental health, and flawed characters whose worth is not determined by their past actions. Even if you've been disenchanted with the MCU lately, this anti-hero team-up movie might be worth a shot. It's a mostly standalone film that does a pretty good job of reminding us who returning characters are, so you could probably get by without having seen anything else. But to get the most out of the story, I'd suggest at least watching Black Widow for Yelena's introduction and backstory. If you liked Thunderbolts, I would recommend The Suicide Squad. Specifically the one starting with the. James Gunn's sequel to the much maligned DCEU film not only focuses on a reluctant team of villains and anti-heroes, but also brings some engaging character-driven storytelling to the darkness and action. If you'd prefer to stick to the Marvel side of things, you should watch Black Widow. This movie provided important introductions and background information for 2 of the Thunderbolts team members, but also has a similar tone, diving into darker than usual themes for the MCU. And if you want to step away from comic book movies, you should check out Inside Out 2. It might sound like an unusual recommendation at first, but this is another film that deals with themes of mental health in unexpected ways, delivering those themes in a genre you wouldn't necessarily expect either. Alright, a couple questions for you guys. Number 1, have you seen Thunderbolts? If so, what'd you think of it? And number 2, what would your superhero team be called if it were to get its name in the same way that Thunderbolts did? Be sure to leave your answers in the comments below so we can get a discussion going. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insight, or information out of this review, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe if you're at it to see more videos like this. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainly Movies, the way life should be.